The film begins a decade earlier during a tense hostage situation. A man, having killed a police officer, holds his family captive, warning the police to back off. Unbeknownst to him, a team resembling characters from Call of Duty, led by former Marine turned FBI Commander Will Sawyer, approaches from behind. Will's team breaches the home and rescues the family, but the man clings to one of his sons. Will tries to negotiate with him, urging him to let go of his son, but the man detonates a bomb strapped to his body. Will sustains life-threatening injuries and loses his leg below the knee. Fast forward 10 years to Hong Kong, where reports discuss billionaire Zhao Longji's construction of the Pearl, a cutting-edge skyscraper set to become the tallest in the world. We then see Will getting ready for work, now a security consultant residing in the Pearl's residential area with his wife Sarah and their twins, Henry and Georgia. Sarah compliments him on his appearance, noticing his apprehension about the upcoming meeting with Zhao Longji to discuss skyscraper security. She reassures him that he's been preparing for 6 months and is well prepared. The family walks to the elevators and encounters Ben, a former FBI colleague of Will's, who also sustained injuries from the explosion. They proceed to the top floor, and Will is impressed by the building's beauty. He expresses gratitude to Ben for speaking highly of him, but Ben sees it as natural to assist a friend. Ben guides Will through imposing doors into Zhao's penthouse, where they meet the billionaire. Zhao has conducted thorough research on Will, knowing about Sarah's career as a naval surgeon and their twins, as they are the building's inaugural residents. Will is then introduced to Ani Eki, the head of security, and Mr. Pierce, an insurance company representative awaiting Will's approval to insure the building. Will presents his findings to Zhao. The building's security is top-notch, managed by an off-site facility. He has endorsed all of the Pearl's systems, pending only an inspection of the off-site facility. Zhao expresses gratitude to Will and grants him exclusive access to the fire and safety controls tied to his biometric data. As Will stows away the tablet, it becomes apparent that Ben is scheming. Will departs, and Ben confirms with an unidentified individual that Will possesses the tablet and needs to be brought onto a boat. Zhao escorts Will to a room with multiple reflective panels controlled by his watch. The room, dubbed Heaven by Zhao, features cameras on both sides that can render it seemingly invisible. Will shares details about the room with Ben during their ferry ride. Ben wonders if Will ever misses his former FBI team, but Will emphasizes that he now prioritizes his family and hasn't handled a gun in a decade since the attack. Ben chalks it up to unfortunate circumstances, but Will is thankful, especially as Sarah served as his doctor. They reach their destination, unaware that a man is tailing them. The man slashes Will's bag with a knife and flees into the crowd, firing shots. Ben briefly pursues the assailant but swiftly returns to assist Will, helping him stand up. Meanwhile, in the basement of the Pearl, a technician conducting maintenance notices a crack forming in the wall. Suddenly, the wall collapses, revealing a hole. As the technician investigates, he is grabbed by an arm and fatally strangled. The perpetrator is international terrorist Course Bota and his team, who proceed to move explosives into the area. While Ben tends to Will's injuries from the previous attack, Will attempts to contact his wife. However, Ben realizes that Will has the tablet hidden in his jacket. Annoyed, Ben retreats to the bathroom and receives confirmation of Will's possession of the tablet via phone call. Sarah, returning home with the children, encounters Bota and an associate on the residential floor. They claim to be inspecting the phone lines, but their presence unsettles Sarah. Meanwhile, at Ben's apartment, as Will prepares to depart, Ben suddenly draws a gun and demands the tablet. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Will fights back and disarms Ben. In the ensuing struggle, Ben violently throws Will around the room, ultimately detaching his prosthetic leg. Despite Ben wielding a knife, Will manages to deflect his attacks and subdue him, culminating in Ben being shot in the chest during the scuffle. Despite the situation, Will persists in trying to assist his old friend, pleading with him to clarify the circumstances. Ben provides Will with an explanation, revealing that Sarah and the children were not intended to return home. Meanwhile, Bota and his accomplices are seen spreading a water-reactive substance on the 96th floor. Subsequently, Bota ignites a flare to trigger the sprinkler system, resulting in a massive fire. While Mr. Pierce advocates for evacuating the building, Zhao remains unperturbed, being safely situated 100 floors above the blaze. In his final moments, Ben warns Will of impending threats targeting him and the tablet, urging him to flee. As sirens wail in the distance, Will hastily reattaches his prosthetic leg, observing the Pearl engulfed in flames. Preparing to depart, Will is ambushed by armed individuals and compelled to flee through the fire escape. However, Upon landing, he is incapacitated by a woman wielding a stun gun, rendering him unconscious. The assailant sees the tablet from Will and activate it, but their attempt to kill him is thwarted by the arrival of the police, enabling Will to escape during the ensuing shootout. Subsequently, the woman flees in a jeep with the tablet, prompting Will to pursue her. Unable to run swiftly due to his prosthetic leg, Will commandeers a police motorcycle to continue the pursuit. Meanwhile, the authorities converge around the burning Pearl, with Inspector Wu receiving a briefing on the situation. Unbeknownst to the police, Sarah and the children are trapped above the 96th floor. In a bid to survive, Sarah prepares to lead an escape attempt, providing Georgia with wet towels and ensuring Henry has his inhaler. Georgia expresses concern about their imminent demise, but Sarah assures them that they will survive the ordeal. Bota and his team don tactical gear and instruct Zia, a woman, to infiltrate the off-site facility. Zia and her squad forcefully enter the facility, eliminating all the workers present. Displaying a sense of empowerment, Zia personally eliminates 2 armed security personnel. Meanwhile, Will arrives at the Pearl but finds the building under lockdown. He communicates with Sarah via FaceTime, instructing her to locate a logistics panel in the hallway so he can provide assistance. Upon receiving an alert about the Sawyer's presence in the building, Zhao directs a subordinate named Johnny to dispatch 2 men to escort the family to his suite. Concurrently, Zhao receives an alert regarding the off-site facility, where Zia's hacker exploits Will's tablet to gain administrative access to the Pearl. Zia relays the information to Bota, who commands her to seal off all the floors below the fire and deactivate the anti-fire measures for the floors above, leading to the uncontrolled escalation of the blaze. Undeterred by the perilous conditions, Sarah and the twins brave the dense smoke to reach the control panel. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Will instructs them to immediately proceed to the floors above. Bota then commands the hacker to utilize the airflow to propagate the fire, burning everything upward to the pinnacle. Meanwhile, Sarah and the twins encounter Zhao's men at the elevators, but the fire is drawn through the vents, ascending the elevator shaft and resulting in a massive explosion. Witnessing the detonation during the ongoing video call, Will shrieks in terror. Surrounding news reports swiftly label him as the prime suspect, prompting the cops to aim their weapons at him. Despite Will's impassioned pleas to prioritize his family's rescue, the police persist in their attempt to apprehend him. Consequently, Will resists and manages to flee. The hacker then delivers the tablet to Z, boasting of his accomplishment in infiltrating the tower. Zia, greatly impressed, promptly eliminates him. Ani advises Zhao that further delay in evacuation will cause the fire to intensify, rendering the helipad unusable. Reluctantly, Zhao acquiesces, and they make preparations for his helicopter departure. However, before departing, Zhao accesses a concealed room and safe. Meanwhile, Will reaches a construction crane adjacent to the Pearl. Unable to access the elevators, he opts to scale the exterior to reach the summit. Inspector Wu receives a briefing on Will's background in the FBI, his family, and his involvement in the Pearl incident. They believe Will is the mastermind behind the attack. Suddenly, he spots himself on a news camera scaling the structure, prompting orders for his team to apprehend him. As Will nears the top, he notices the pursuing cops, urging him to exert even more effort. With a daring maneuver, he reaches the summit, nearly slipping but managing to save himself. Blocking the construction crane's entrance, he traps the cops who had used the elevator. Operating the crane, he maneuvers it closer to the Pearl. Jay confides in Ani, revealing his knowledge of Bota's involvement in the building's attack and his pursuit of a device. Will extends the crane toward the building, but it's insufficient, so he swings the hook, causing it to smash through the structure. Climbing to the crane's peak, he's confronted by cops who hold him at gunpoint after cutting through his barricade. Suddenly, Will dashes toward the building, barely avoiding a fatal fall and drawing cheers from the spectators. Xiao, Ani, Mr. Pierce, and his team head for the helicopter, but Ani realizes the pilot isn't their own. In a sudden turn, Pierce brandishes a gun and starts shooting. Bota and his team ambush them, sparking a fierce firefight. Bota then unveils Pierce's allegiance to him all along, disclosing that his employers seek both Zhao and his drive. Ani regains consciousness and swiftly shoots the helicopter pilot, causing it to plummet toward them in flames. Jay recovers and swiftly escapes while they fire at him. Zhao activates his secure room, barely getting inside and locking himself in. Bota calls Sia to open the doors, but she realizes the penthouse has its own security system. Observing movement on the cameras, she spots Sarah and the kids, alerting Bota. They gather outside the penthouse, seeking access, but realize only Will can help. Bota devises a plan to lure Will. Meanwhile, Will, injured with a metal shard in his chest, retrieves supplies and removes the shard, patching the wound. After checking security monitors, he grabs an axe and heads out to reach Sarah. Sarah and the twins encounter Mr. Pierce, who grabs Sarah, prompting her to injure him with scissors, allowing the twins to escape. Despite being held at gunpoint by Mr. Pierce, Sarah manages to outsmart him. As Georgia and Henry navigate obstacles, including a burning tree, they plan to reunite at the waterfall, while Sarah faces off against Mr. Pierce, who intends to harm her. However, Will intervenes and shoves Pierce off the broken bridge. They embrace in relief. Meanwhile, Henry appears on the other side of the damaged bridge, showing his parents Georgia at the waterfall. Will improvises a makeshift bridge with a plank, enabling Sarah to reach Henry. While returning, Sarah slips but manages to rescue herself and Henry, reaching safety. Will needs to evacuate Sarah and Henry, but since the magnetic elevators only function below the 96th floor, he plans to let it descend through the fire until the magnets activate. He assures them of their safety and pledges to rescue Georgia before releasing the elevator. Two mercenaries encounter Georgia, who calls for Will's help. She hides in the boiler room, with the mercenaries in pursuit. Will intervenes, but Bota holds him at gunpoint. Forced to comply, Will and Georgia are brought to the door, where Bota demands Will to open it. Despite Will's assertion of impossibility, Bota insists that with enough motivation, anything is achievable. His men then seize Georgia, promising to harm her. After overpowering Will and taking Georgia away, Will feels defeated. However, upon learning from the news that Sarah and Henry have escaped, he finds renewed determination to reach Jiao. Will discovers an external security panel for Jiao's penthouse, accessible only from outside the Pearl. Sarah and Henry meet Inspector Wu, who clears Will's name and updates them about the mercenaries. Wu identifies Bota from their descriptions but questions why he'd stay in a burning building until Sarah reveals they have parachutes. Using a tool, Will smashes the sturdy windows of the tower, then secures himself with ropes and tape before scaling the ledge. He navigates past turbines, activating the system to open the penthouse, but an explosion forces him to leap from the building. Hanging by his prosthetic leg thousands of feet above ground, he manages to pull himself back inside, relieving Sarah and the onlookers. Xiao attempts to shut the penthouse doors, but Will uses his leg to keep them open and slips inside. Disarming Xiao, Will learns that Bota extorted money from him during the construction project, storing evidence of the transactions to protect himself from the crime syndicates Bota works for. Bota orchestrated the attack to seize the records, fearing his employer's threats. Taking Jiao to the rooftop, Will confronts Bota and offers the drive in exchange for Zhao's daughter. During the confrontation, Xiao throws the drive off the building, providing a distraction for Georgia to flee. In a high-tech projector room, Bota and his mercenaries pursue them cautiously, encountering multiple decoys. Amidst the chaos, Xiao eliminates one attacker, while Will subdues two others, deploying one man's parachute to eject him from the building. The two men devise a plan to locate Georgia when Bota suddenly opens fire on them before pursuing Georgia. Meanwhile, Inspector Wu and his officers trace Bota's expected landing spot. Z and her mercenaries engage in a fierce shootout with the cops. Z eliminates the cops and nearly catches Wu off guard, but Sarah intervenes and attacks her. Despite Sarah's efforts, Zia gains the advantage and almost strangles Sarah until Wu intervenes at gunpoint. Xiao sustains injuries but urges Will to rescue his daughter. Armed with a gun, Will searches until he discovers Bota holding Georgia and a grenade. Bota commands Will to surrender his gun, and Will obeys. However, Will outmaneuvers Bota, kicking him off the building, resulting in his demise. Will and Georgia find themselves trapped as the flames draw nearer. Embracing Georgia, Will expresses his love as they brace for the worst. Suddenly, Sarah seizes the tablet from Zia and successfully reboots the security systems, extinguishing the fire and saving Will and Georgia. Will then reunites with Jiao, who is still alive, and they emerge to safety. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.